Winning close games, good. Losing close games, bad. And that pretty much tells the story of the Big 12 for the last few years, and it might very well do it again. This is the College Game Day Podcast. Rece Davis and Dan Wetzel continuing our conference previews. Pete Thamel still out. And I say still out like it's a problem. It's not a problem. Pete and his wife, Kate, just welcomed their daughter, Tegan. So Pete spending some time there. Of course, he'll be back by the time the season starts. Dan's going to be a regular with us all year. Delighted to have him as part of this. Big 12, Dan, is one of the more, it might be the most fun conference in the country simply because you don't know what's going to happen week to week. You take almost half the league, I think seven of the teams in the league, according to our buddy Bill Connolly, return guys who gave them 145 starts or more for their current team. 5 of the teams brought in guys who gave them 125 starts elsewhere. So you put all of this into a big mix. You got a bunch of one-possession games. If you win them, you're a contender. If you lose them, you don't. Case in point, last year, I made a terrible prediction in the Big 12. I picked Kansas to win the league and go to the playoff. Well, Kansas didn't win its close games. Now, late in the season, they played well and knocked off some teams. Arizona State picked to finish last. Arizona State did win its close games. 6-2 in one possession game, 6-1 in the regular season. One of those losses to Texas in the playoff. And it underscores that year to year, and if you're of the opinion that these things, if you win your close games one year, if you don't significantly improve, the ball might bounce against you the next year, it factors into the unpredictability of this league.
Return to mean. It's a big one. Defines my golf game when I hit 3 putts early in the round. I'm always very nervous about what's coming. It does not build confidence in me. The entire league is a little known ordinance in the league, a little bylaw that the point spread must be 2.5 for every Big 12 game. So all games are close. They come down the end. It's like the NFL. It's easily the most interesting league. It's the most exciting league because there really isn't a time. As you said, Arizona State picked last year, won the league. Not only won the league, almost won that playoff game. So anything can happen. It's wild and woolly. We talk about the wild, wild west in this sport a lot. A lot of these teams live in the wild, wild west. So they're welcome. Hey, let's add 52 transfers. Okay. Oklahoma State added 10 coaches. They did transfer portal for the coaching staff, right? You don't know what we're getting on some of these clubs. Some teams we do. There's always quarterbacks. I don't know how you don't love this league. Anything can happen. It's a lot of fun. I think it's on the rise. I think revenue share will be a big thing for this league. Every team now can target the recruits that they want and maybe peel some off. We're seeing Houston's got a great quarterback coming in. BYU's got a great quarterback coming in. Texas Tech is making 5-star waves and has been. You're seeing money get spent, and a lot of these schools have money. So I think it's a great time for the Big 12. That's why I applaud them for not buying into, we should only get 2 bids and other leagues should get 4. You don't know where this is going to be in 5 or 10 years. And I suspect that this entire league will continue to get better.
And you even have the subplots of coaches returning to places where they were most prominent and had the most success. And Rich Rodriguez going to West Virginia, back to West Virginia. Scott Frost returning to UCF. I mean, what do you think about that? And, all of these teams are a breath away from being in the mix. A lot of people picked Oklahoma State last year to win it. They didn't win a single conference game. It went sideways on Gundy. Only Kirk Ferentz at Iowa has been at one place longer than Mike Gundy's been at Oklahoma State. And you mentioned the coaching turnover there. One of the things that I think Mike has always done well is identify coaches on the rise from nowhere. And then instead this year, when that hasn't worked the last couple of times, he goes the other way. And his coordinators are veterans, Doug Meacham on offense and Todd Grantham on defense. Now, I don't have the Pokes in my list of contenders. The contenders, as I group them, and I will encourage you to add a team that you might think that I've left out. I think Arizona State, even with the loss of Scatterboo, they've got a ton of guys coming back. They're super high on Sam Leavitt taking a next big step in the passing game. Jordan Tyson back healthy. You had a great year until he was hurt late. Kansas State and Avery Johnson. Iowa State, which was in the conference championship game a year ago. And I was higher on Baylor, but now I'm wondering the whole Dave Aranda Wolf of Wall Street quote about the difficulty of building authentic relationships. Yeah, made me take a little half step back. And Utah, and Utah there. Now, I wasn't offended. I was just like, huh. But Dave's a super smart guy, and sometimes you work on the metaphors, and you leave people scratching their head a little bit confused. If I'm not going to go into it because I really don't want to have to answer for all of it. So if you don't know the Aranda quote from the Wolf of Wall Street when answering a question about building authentic relationships within your team and recruiting, look it up. It's like, is he going to dig his way out of this hole? The great Lou Holtz, my good friend Lou Holtz, always used to say, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. So Dave didn't stop digging in that particular case. Put Iowa State in there. I put Utah in there. Tremendous quarterback coming in, very productive at New Mexico and Devin Dampier. Would you put Texas Tech in there, or do I have the right list to start, at least in terms of?
I think you got the right list, and Jordan Belfort did build great team at Stratton Oakmont. I mean, they really were committed to each other. I agree. We won't go through the quote. It's a great movie, very entertaining movie. Not a Disney movie, and Disney is on my paycheck, Rece, and so I think we'll kick it back. But you can do worse than team building. You can do a lot. Maybe not the criminal aspects of Stratton Oakmont, but the team building was certainly there. I like that. I like that group. Interesting thing looking at our ESPN's Bill Conley's projections for the season. And look, this is one of many, but I certainly like it. He has 8 teams from the Big 12 in the top 35. Kansas State, Arizona State, Texas Tech, BYU, TCU, Utah, Iowa State, Baylor. Kansas State is at 18. So he's got 8 in a 17 spot pack, right? Mm-hmm. That's how tight this thing is going to be. And that's why I think you have to look and go, yeah, any of these guys could win it. I don't know. I mean, you just literally cannot tell with this league. It is hard to do conference predictions because of the transfer portal in the Big Ten and the SEC. And they rely either on less transfers, generally fewer transfers, or they have more, the guys they're getting are a little bit more name, right? You've seen this guy play often at even another power 4. The Big 12 is bringing in guys from everywhere, man, everywhere. And what to the point kind of I think you were making and I was making earlier, one of the things about why this league is so even is it makes it makes no sense geographically, right? We're all over the place. But because of that, they don't cannibalize each other, right? Scott Frost can do an incredible job in Central Florida for Central Florida and recruiting and player and getting transfers back. And it has zero impact on what Kenny Dillingham is doing in Tempe, Arizona, because it's just different guys. So they're not recruiting against each other. In the SEC, the Big Ten, there's still a lot of recruiting against each other. Big Ten less, obviously we got these wings out west, but you could, Scott, he can do a great job up at Cincinnati, getting Ohio kids. They're not always banging into each other. So everybody can get better in this league. There's not a finite group. It's not just look at who's going to get this pack of players that might be willing to go. So I think the 8 of that Conley had are all fair. I think if you give a demerit for the Wolf of Wall Street quote, I think that may be fair. But also, I mean, again, Stratton Oakmont made high highs. It had some high highs. Had some low lows. So, buy low, sell high on Baylor, maybe.
I can't resist bringing this up because I didn't really plan to with the whole Wolf of Wall Street to dwell on it.
We just do the pod on that. It's a great movie.
we could.
It's really, strong movie. Make this Baylor watchables.
Think about Baylor quarterback Sawyer Robertson. Okay, he just heard his head coach do that. And I saw on a podcast recently, I've forgotten which one, or I'd be happy to give them credit. But Sawyer started his career at Mississippi State playing for Mike Leach. So he just heard this, which is a little bit off the wall. And Sawyer told an unbelievable story. I think they had lost a game, had played very poorly, maybe to Alabama. And I guess Leach was asking the players, what went wrong? Why didn't we play better? And the recurring theme was confidence. We need confidence. We need to build our confidence. We have to have more of this confidence. So Leach, in his own inimitable way, walks in to the next team meeting after hearing all of this lack of confidence from his team, has a GA bring him a book, which he is going to read to the team to boost their confidence. He read The Little Engine That Could, word to word, word for word, cover to his team and said, there, that should fix it. Let's practice. And that was it. So Sawyer Robertson has heard The Little Engine That Could and a Wolf of Wall Street quote as Baylor tries to see if it's a contender.
He's seen some things. Yeah, he's seen some things. Like, yeah, you meet him at a cocktail party like 20 years from now, you want to stand there and let him tell some stories. Oh, my.
30-year history of the Big 12. Only program to repeat as champion in the entire history is Oklahoma.
Wow.
They won it 6 years in a row. They had 4 champs in the last 4 years, had a run of teams that have made it to the championship game. Arizona State was plus 14 in turnovers last year. Cam Scatteraboo was the heart and soul of their offense. Every logical thing in me makes me say, okay, I'm picking somebody other than Arizona State to win the Big 12 simply because of these things. But I went on this coaching tour, and you can be overly influenced by one day around a team. There's no question about that. But the vibe you got from them, the camaraderie, the confidence, the number of guys that they have back, other than Scatteraboo, they have a very different yet productive running back transfer from Army and Kanye Udo coming in. By the way, I asked Ben Coleman, their center, what's the biggest difference in having Udo back there as opposed to Scatteraboo with Levitt? And he said, there are fewer arguments in the backfield. Apparently, they would, Scatteraboo and Levitt were known to yell at each other, no, you're supposed to be on this side. No, it's this check. And he said, hey, Udo's more of a military guy,
Props to Levitt for making that argument. Scatteraboo tells me something. I'm not mouthing back. All right. Toughness out of Sam Levitt. I'm
going to tell that guy. That guy's no shrinking violet. He's got a little something to him, and it's because of that's where I start with Arizona State. I think I would. All of the things I said historically certainly give me pause, no doubt about it. But I start there. I probably would pick, or not probably. It's time to do the picking. I think they're going to back up and at the very least make it back to the Big 12 championship game. But they're going to lose a couple of games because everybody in that conference is going to lose a couple of games.
So yeah, you can be influenced by coaches and Kenny Satterfield. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sorry, Kenny Dillingham. Yeah, Kenny Satterfield. Man, that's like an old basketball player. Kenny Dillingham. Will influence you, and that's why that's why he's very successful as still the youngest head coach in the country, maybe, I don't know. But this guy's a force of nature. I visited him before. I went over to Arizona State. The Super Bowl was out in Phoenix, and I went over to Arizona State one morning and met with Kenny and kind of saw the program, and they hadn't played any games yet. And obviously he's a kind of a force of nature, but they had this thing. This stuck with me. They were doing this thing called like Big Lift Friday or something like that, where everyone's got to like try to max out, or I don't know, whatever the thing was. But these kids were so excited about this. And I actually met a kid afterwards when I was leaving, and I forget his name. He was very nice. And we were talking outside the building. He kind of ran into me, asked me what I was doing and who, where I was with and all these different things. And he was just talking about how excited everyone was about Big Lift Friday. Like it was look, you've been around even more programs than I have, but you get around programs that sometimes you just can sense momentum. Mm-hmm. You can just sense something's there. And I know it's a very small thing and it ain't going to help you beat BYU, but maybe it does. And I just was like, boy, this program is on the rise. I did not think it'd be this quickly on the rise. So my guess is that, yes, there is, that's one of the reasons they won all those games. Will that streak last? No. If he is that good at winning close games, he's going to get swooped up by the NFL for like $20 million a year. But there is a great momentum with Arizona State. So as much as they have lost and as much as you want to sit there and say, hey, it's not going to happen, I have a lot of faith in that program continuing to rise. And I think he's getting the players and the enthusiasm and the program that really is built to last, which he wants to do.
Chris Kleiman, kind of a different path than Kenny Dillingham, who I believe is still the only FBS coach who was born as late as the 90s. Kleiman's in his 7th year at Kansas State. They won 9 games last year. They were on the cusp of it. I would say probably slightly disappointing for them. A little bit more was expected. A couple of close losses that ended up keeping them out of the conference championship game. But Avery Johnson's an exceptional athlete. Set a Kansas State single season record for touchdown passes last year. Breaking Will Howard's record, I believe. Got Dylan Edwards back. They do have to do some rebuilding on the offensive line, but that seemed to have been a strong suit of Kleiman and his staff for their time there. And they also have, since you like great names, I ran across this name. They've got a defensive end called Cody Stufflebean.
Oh, man, come on.
That's a good name.
That's 5-6 sacks right there.
Yeah, for sure, right?
It's done. Run stuffer. Maybe he's a run stuffer. Maybe it's a tackle for loss.
Yeah. They had to cut down their practices in the spring. They had some injuries, make sure they're healthy for the season. They opened week 0 against Iowa State, but really important game before everybody else even got started in Dublin. So
Farmageddon.
Yeah. How about Farmageddon in a country of some of the great farmland on the planet?
Yeah. Also some of the great drinking, and between Kansas State and Iowa State, we got some fan bases that know their way around an open cocktail. This is the great. You have seen these memes like the European mind can't comprehend. Have you seen these things? They're on, on social media. A Farmageddon would qualify, and they're going to do it. They're going to do it. I don't know. Ireland is a resilient place, and Dublin has seen, it's swarms of partiers through the 1,000 years that it's been around or whatever. But the cultural phenomenon of Farmageddon, Kansas State, Iowa State, in Temple Bar, in Dublin, fantastic. I could not be more excited about this.
I think both those teams will be really good. It wouldn't. Even if I'm riding with Arizona State as my pick, it wouldn't shock me if the week 0 game also winds up being the Big 12 championship game. Rocco Becht coming back for Iowa State, experienced quarterback in the league. Now they've brought in only 8 portal guys, but 3 of them were edge rushers. Got wide receiver Xavier Townsend, who has a long friendship with Rocco Becht, which could help offset the loss of those 2 big-time receivers they had last year, and Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll. So, look, Matt Campbell has proven he's 10 years now at Iowa State that they're going to be good. He's the winningest coach in Cyclone history. But, I'm really anxious to see this game on week 0. Long way to go after it, but just see where they stack up in the immediate, and who takes the early lead as perhaps one of the favorites in the Big 12.
Well, I agree. I think both teams, these are 2 rock solid programs, right? And they're both returning quarterbacks, and there's a lot of things to like. One of the things I really like about what Kansas State has done under Kleiman, they've started to get the great Kansas player to come to Manhattan. Avery Johnson's obviously one. Dylan Edwards transferred back from Colorado, but they're not going to produce a million great players in Kansas, in the state of Kansas, and they're not going to get all of them. Everyone's going to come in and try to recruit, but they're getting a good share at this point, and you can get that pop of talent. It can mean a whole lot. So I like both these programs a lot. Could see either one of them winning. And again, week 0, terrific.
I was not on the Utah bandwagon a year ago, and yet I'm not going to go 2 years in a row and think that they're not going to contend. A rare losing record last season, finishing 5-7. Change offensive coordinators, bring in Jason Beck from New Mexico, who brings his quarterback, Devin Dampier, with him, who is the nation's top returning rushing quarterback, not from a service academy. Really talented, elusive guy. Led some upsets last year. They've got guys up front. They've got an All-American candidate on the offensive line. They've got experienced guys on defense. I think you'll see a bit of a bounce back from Utah this year. They open at UCLA, which will be which will be a fun opener for them. And then they have Texas Tech pretty early before a trip to West Virginia. Do you buy Utah bounce back this year?
I would predict Utah to win the league. If I had to pick
there
one,
you go. Okay.
If I absolutely had to pick one, as you mentioned, new offense coordinator, and he's Devin Dampier's coach over at New Mexico. You got a dual threat QB, 4 new running backs, 6 new wide receivers. This offense is going to cook. The offensive line, Whittingham said, was the best offensive line he's ever had. They got 2 potential first rounders. There's a ton of experience. The best offensive line that it would basically be the best offensive line in Utah history or something close. And with a dual threat QB, I'm taking that. I think that this is the bounce back year. Kyle Whittingham nearing the end of his career. He didn't want to go out like he did last year. I don't think they're going to go out last year. Defense going to be somewhat of a question, but this is going to be smash mouth, but with a darting QB. I think it's going to be an exciting season in Salt Lake City.
They had a 7-game losing streak. They started well, won some close games, and lost 7 in a row. Finished a -4 in turnover, sort of uncharacteristic of the great Utah teams. And before we take a break, among these contenders, there's always a surprise contender. Are you putting Texas Tech in that group with their massively expensive and perhaps wildly productive transfer portal class? They got a big defensive lineman, Lee Hunter from UCF. They got Romello Height, who was productive for Georgia Tech last year after stops at USC and Auburn. They got a defensive back from Mississippi State. They even went to some of the smaller schools to help them on the offensive front. FCS guys coming up. 138 career starts on the offensive line when you factor in all of the returning guys. Got Quentin Joyner, running back from SC. And then Bear Morton, when he can stay healthy, has been a productive quarterback. A lot of guys coming back for Joey McGuire. In that, and new coordinators in that realm, or not ready to go into that realm? Or
absolutely.
Any way to tell?
No, absolutely, they're in that realm. It's hard to necessarily know, but these are a lot of these transfers are kind of known transfers. I mean, Quentin Joyner is a good running back for USC, so there's no reason. And look, some of these guys can come up from FCS. We know that can be great, but they've got some known commodities coming in. They spent a lot of money. I'm going to put a lot of faith in Joey McGuire and everyone's ability in Lubbock to scout out and spend on the right guys. Absolutely no reason they can't win. I think maybe they should expect to win. You spend that kind of money, we'll see. But they are absolutely going to be a contender. Texas Tech's a program moving fast. So if they're the ones that make the playoff, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Nor would I. September 20th at Utah. First really big test for
chin
the
strap.
Red Raiders.
Yeah, buckle your chin strap on that one.
I would always advisable when you go in front of the mighty Utah student section. Rice Eccles, one of the great and underrated places to go see a game. If you haven't been there,
especially at night,
really should. Oh, electric. A fantastic experience. We had a great college game day trip there not long ago, and hopefully Utah will be good enough to get us back there this year. Next tier of teams in the Big 12, that could be a gargantuan one. We continue with our previews here on the College Game Day Podcast. Back on the College Game Day Podcast with our Big 12 preview, Rece Davis and Dan Wetzel with you. There's always an argument when you do the upper echelon of teams and then the teams in the next tier that might break in. Well, you should have put them in the upper tier. And I think that the first team on my list that I would say has an argument, it's a team I will see calling the game on Labor Day night, is TCU. Sonny Dykes very quietly, Dan, they won 9 games last year. They finished 6-3, just a game out of that tie for first place in the Big 12. Josh Hoover, their quarterback, threw for nearly 4,000 yards a year ago. They've got a lot of guys back, a lot of continuity on that team. Brought in some transfers, as everybody has, that they hope will be able to plug some spots, particularly on the defensive front and on the secondary, or in the secondary. Kind of high on TCU being in the mix in the Big 12.
Well, yeah, I mean, they started, I think, 3-3. So, and they finished with 9 wins. So they got it going. They were a lot better late. Josh Hoover is a very, very promising quarterback. As this whole league is just quarterback rich. There are just so many good quarterbacks in college football these days. And so I think that as he progressed and got better as the season, so did everyone else. The defense, they return a bunch of guys that played a lot. We'll see how they can do it if they can shore it up and kind of get that little bit of a magical run like they had in 2022. There's no reason any of these teams can't be in the upper echelon. I mean, we're pretty much anybody. I'm not really ruling anybody out in this league. That's the thing.
I agree. They do. They play 11 Power 4 opponents. That's tied with Baylor for the most in the country. And you'll find when I look at previews, because it's so hard to tell, so much of it is a bounce of the ball unless you're uber talented. A couple things I like to look at: how experienced is your offensive line? What did you do in turnovers? Last 2 years, TCU has been a total of -13, -6, and -7 the last 2 years. 22, when they played for the national championship and ended up, they didn't win the Big 12, but ended up going to the playoff and playing for the national championship, they were +6. So can they take care of the ball? Can they win the close games? That's the whole thing. And the same might be said. Colorado last year was very close to playing for the conference championship. There was a point in time late in the season that I thought that they were the best team in the Big 12. They kind of got it handed to them late. Now it's a big change, big turnover, bit of a rebuild for Deion Sanders with Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders being gone, among others. And then Deion also recovering, and our best to him as he continues to, his battle against cancer that supposedly and seemingly, rather, I should say, has gone very well. And we're delighted to hear that. And, the Buff said when he returned, it was like a breath of fresh air. So, I mean, people have questioned, commitment. Was he just there for Shedeur? And the answer appears to be no. And Colorado they've got some skill. They may be a little stronger in some areas than they've been the last couple of years, but waiting on the quarterback. Caden Salter, the transfer from Liberty, is a proven guy. And of course, Julian Lewis, Juju Lewis is a highly touted guy who most believe will be a star at some point.
Yeah, I thought getting Juju Lewis was a really big step in kind of proving what Deion Sanders has been saying all along. He's not just here to coach his sons. There was sort of that narrative. They're always trying to find a thing with Coach Prime, and it's great. His press conference and the whole announcement of how he dealt with cancer and has beaten cancer was just remarkable. And at his best, he's just the most. He can just be the most inspiring person, and it's something when there's such great humility that comes from a guy who built his whole career on quite entertainingly. I say this in a positive way, not being humble, yeah. Right? I mean, this is prime time. I mean, this is it, right? He said, "I'm gonna make money as a cornerback," and he did. And so I've always found him to be highly entertaining, and not having him around does that. If we got to get down to X's and O's, I mean, whatever. He wasn't there because he had to, he was winning a much bigger game, and so we're excited about that. But does he just give a jolt of energy when he's back in that building? Yeah, probably. I think it would be really exciting, and you see a guy who's fought that hard. His players tend to really love him. So it's a new era. You don't have Travis Hunter, you don't have Shedeur, some of the other great players, but really interesting. Can they get 6 wins? Can they get 7 wins? I think that'd be a good season for Colorado this year. And I think their long-term future, as long as Coach Prime is there, and really if his health issues are behind him, again, there's a lot of potential going forward.
100% agree. Take care of the ball. Plus 12 in turnovers. They've got a lot of starts coming back on the offensive line. Freshman offensive lineman from a year ago, now a season under his belt, Jordan Seaton, perhaps on track to be one of the better offensive linemen in the country as his career continues to develop. BYU took Colorado apart in the bowl game last year, looked to have a lot going its way coming back, and then the whole Jake Retzloff thing leaves them with complete uncertainty at quarterback. How do you evaluate BYU coming into this after losing their quarterback to an off the field situation, honor code violations, as it turned out.
Yeah, and that's I think the only reason this wouldn't be, in the first couple teams as a true title contender in the league. We don't know. It's a little like Tennessee, right? You lose a returning guy like that late. How do you replace him? Obviously, different circumstances, but who's going to play quarterback? How good is he? How quickly can they learn the offense? It's an uncertainty that leads at everything else, though. With Kalani Sitake's program is rock solid. They're going to play defense. They're going to be physical. They're going to be really tough to play in Provo. Absolutely everything that is there. It's really just quarterback. It's just I don't know what to say. I don't know how to predict them, and I don't know that anyone else really does at this point. But keep an eye on them, because it's not like 10 wins are out of the question at all. This is a team at the end of the year. They kind of had this argument to make the playoff. It wasn't probably ever going to be a winning argument, but I didn't think they actually were in the discussion enough that they deserved that final playoff spot that ended up kind of getting taken away anyway. Clemson jumped in and won the ACC, but they were right there. If you really looked at all the metrics of what was going on, this was a great team at the end of the year and had an argument for a playoff bid.
And having the victory over SMU, if that had gone a different way, Dan, it's a great point, because I felt like that last playoff spot ended up being what's the least objectionable option. And given BYU's run last year and that victory over SMU, had there been a spot available, had SMU been able to hang on in the ACC championship game, BYU could have made a run. Two other teams, I think you're higher on one than the other. I think Cincinnati could be sort of sneaking around. They actually outgained their opponents in Big 12 play, but still finished 3-6 in the conference standings in a game under 500 overall. And the reboot, the sequel, Rich Rod, back in Morgantown. You're a believer. I'm a believer in Rich Rodriguez. I don't know about this year, though, because there are 1,000 new Mountaineers. They're all new Mountaineers.
Yes. There's 52 transfers and 24 high school players. That's 76. The roster is supposed to be like 85. So I don't know who stuck around.
Nico Marchiol. He stuck around.
The few, the proud, the returning Mountaineers. You tell me how good a team with 76 new players is going to be, and an entirely new coaching staff. No idea. Let me go say this one thing about Cincinnati. I'm going to give credit, because I've now researched this a little bit to Pete. Pete Thamel said, we talk about this. Cincinnati has a transfer. Now, these transfers, you don't know. This kid, he thinks that Cincinnati was a wide receiving core away. Scott Satterfield, not Kenny, also a Bearcat, but Scott Satterfield. Great Kenny Satterfield, just getting drops in here. Scott Satterfield, we really thought the receiving core, they had a good receiving core last year. They're a better team. They're coming along for Brendan Sorsby. Jeff Caldwell, 6'5". He's from Lindenwood. This is the Pete Thamel intel from Lindenwood. 6'5", 215, Walter Payton Award finalist last year. That's FCS best player. He's going to the dynamic Bearcats. So keep an eye on that. I won't pretend that I found him, but I've looked into this, and yes, Jeff Caldwell looks pretty good. They open with Nebraska at Arrowhead. Rich, I'm just all about the Mountaineers. Let's go. And I'm going to give we got 76 new players. They have 3 guys from FCS or Division II who rushed for 1,000 yards last year. From Catawba, I'm not sure.
No, it's probably. I think you're seeing Catawba.
Ferris State and Northern. You got 3,000-yard rushers from somewhere coming in. They've got Pat White and Noel Devine as this is the fastest assistant coaches in the country. Okay, they're going to run. Next year they get a guy named Sir Paul Jesus in Cleats Cheeks coming in. He's a freshman. He'll be a freshman. He runs the 40 in like 2.4. Okay, he's like Usain Bolt. But you talked about the Dave Aranda quote about Wolf of Wall Street. I posit that this might be the best quote in the Big 12. Rich Rodriguez, they have a tradition down there in Morgantown that sometimes unupholstered or upholstered furniture finds a lit flame after big victories, right? So much so that they have made it a a violation of the city ordinance. Rich Rodriguez doesn't care. I heard there's a city ordinance against it, but if we win a big game this year, I'm just going to say myself, okay, I'm going to make this a little more PG, is burning a couch. I'm going to pay the fine ahead of time or something. I don't care. The coach is saying he's going to burn a couch. Now I looked up the penalty, $500. But before you have to pay the $500 fine, which Rich Rod can afford, you get a written warning before the citation. How do you get a written warning on a burning couch, Rece? How does that, is the couch is either burning or not? Do you have to put it out, then burn it again, get the 500? I don't know. All I know is Rich Rodriguez is threatening, promising to burn couches if they win. That is a program that is all in. Mountaineers are going to shock.
That's a program that understands its history. That's a program that understands fun. I mean, there are so many times when we've been there saying, don't mention the burning couches. You know, they're very sensitive to that, meaning the administrators. Well, not the fans. They like it. That's part of the fun. You know, I've got a sorry couch. I need to get rid of it anyway. Or maybe I have a good couch and I've had too many beverages and I'm going to celebrate, but I'm going to burn the couch. You know, burning the couch is a lot better than like destroying public property. It's your couch. If you want to burn the couch, burn the couch.
Well, not in Morgantown. You got to get a written citation, written warning, then 500.
Well,
just ride the PRT. Get drunk and ride that little train around Morgantown. Do that. Don't burn it. No, I looked at this
Miss Rita will decide which couch gets burned too, whether we need new furniture or whether it's, you know, pull that one out of the garage.
You want to be the furniture store in Morgantown. Like if they upset Texas Tech or something, like you're going to make so much money on Monday selling all the couches back. New couches. You have like a Tuscany villa. I mean, this is how they make money in West Virginia these days.
Well, this is what the furniture companies should do. They should come out with the ad immediately. Burn your couch, boy, do we have a deal for you.
10%
Come
off.
down to the store, I'll throw in a chair. You know?
I mean, they're already paying $500 in this city ordinance. There's a quote in this story. I looked up the fine of $500. This is the research I did for the show. Is a city manager back in 2015. He said, over the last 10 years, we've had over 3,000 street fires because of the quick ability to bring furniture from porches, put it in the streets, and put them on fire. 300 a year in Morgantown. They're burning 300 couches a year in Morgantown from 2005 to 2015. I mean, how do you not love this program?
I mean, it's phenomenal. And then now this whole, 30 years of being on TV and people, getting sensitive to what's said sort of compels me to say, if you're going to burn your couch, and we support this in terms of celebration, please do so safely. Have a fire extinguisher close by just in case. Make sure these things don't get out of hand, because we're not morons. We can see the danger if there are a bunch of couches in one spot and maybe cars around or something. Be wise. You can have some fun. Just be wise while you're doing it. Maybe there should be a big area where people, all the couches too, it's all safely policed. Maybe the fire department's around to make sure things don't get out of hand, and the revelry can commence within a confined area.
That could be it. Couch park. They could get a park in like downtown Morgantown. Again, you could put your couch on the PRT, ride it down there, carry it over, you and your buddies, and then torch it in an appropriate manner. I think West Virginia should get on this. Go Mountaineers. I'm fired up.
The most important thing, will West Virginia win enough to make people want to burn their furniture? If they do, it will, the first season of Rich Rod's return after 17 years wandering in the sometimes wilderness and sometimes at mountaintops at various outposts, will be worth the sojourn, I guess. We'll wrap up our look at the Big 12 with others who might make an Arizona State-esque run when you come back. And we digressed into the world of couches a little bit. It's left us a bit short on time here. So teams we haven't really talked about: Kansas, UCF, Oklahoma State, Houston, Arizona. Among those, who would be most likely, not saying you're picking it, but who would be most likely to make an Arizona State-esque run? Pick to finish near the bottom, finish at the top.
I'll go with Oklahoma State. I'm going with the Stillwater mullet, Mike Gundy, back up against the wall. He's a fighter. He'll figure something out. Huge transfer portal class. I mentioned 10 new coaches coming in. all new program, but this is one of the really, really good coaches, at times great coaches through the years. And he's had some moments where things were looking a little wobbly in Stillwater, pulls out a 10-win season. So I'm gonna leave some faith in Mike Gundy to pull something off if I got to pick one of those teams.
I love the adaptability of Gundy and the willingness to try different things. I mentioned earlier about hiring unknowns and then saying, you know what, need some veteran presence as my coordinators this year and doing that. I'm gonna go back to the well, Dan. I know that there's a lot of rebuilding to do, but if you're going to start, you might as well start with a dynamic quarterback. I'm going to say Kansas. I don't think they're going to finish first, but with Jalen Daniels and Lance Leipold, who I think is a terrific coach, a lot of guys to replace from last year. Real missed opportunity for the Jayhawks a year ago, in my judgment. But that would be the one. That would be the team I would pick among those to make a big run. Although, I think Arizona might be a little bit better than people think as well. Who is going to win the Big 12? I mentioned earlier, I think it's going to be Arizona State, first Big 12 program to repeat since Oklahoma did it back when the Sooners were in the Big 12. Who have you got? You got Utah?
Well, I'm going to go with Utah. I guess I tipped my hand. This is why
So
I'm
did
a
I. Yeah.
lowly podcaster. Yeah, I tipped my hand. I'm going with Utah. I just think if that offense is going like that, I'll give it a shot. But again, this is the Big 12. I love it. This is what it's going to be. Every week, anything could happen.
Apologies to Sparky and to the mighty Utah student section. We have probably put the hex on you. The Big 12 is going to be wild as ever. And how many bids? Single bid league?
Probably single bid, but it'll be close again. It'll be close again.
Yeah, I'm gonna say one. Also,
it's just hard to break out with a great record. It's just so
Right.
tight. But it's not that two wouldn't be deserving, but maybe if the quote unquote wrong team wins the title game or something like that, a little like the ACC last year. But they got work to do in the non-conference. But some of those things can happen. Since, like we said, Cincinnati at Nebraska, playing Nebraska at Arrowhead, pull that off. There's a lot of opportunities for this league to earn itself a second bid.
Dan, we've been through most of the Big 12, even talked about some of the teams that could potentially jump up out of the group that we perceive will be fighting to get out of the cellar. Scott Frost returned to UCF as the head coach, obviously led them to an undefeated season in 2017. What did you make of that? And, I think there were some struggles there. Gus Malzahn sort of saw it teetering a little bit, beat the posse out of town. Went to be the offensive coordinator at Florida State, and now Scott Frost has to take over. Can he recapture that magic? You mentioned earlier in the podcast about the ability within this conference. You're not beating each other up in recruiting. Obviously, Florida's a fertile recruiting ground. Can he recapture some of that glory and restore some of the luster to his coaching resume as well?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, look, UCF. It's a beautiful campus, 60,000 students. Bounce house is fun. You're sitting right there in Orlando. For a long time, in Florida's been kind of rated by everyone else, and they always will be. But you have a real opportunity in Central Florida and even down into South Florida to get local kids to stay. Scott Frost has some reputation there. You also, in the transfer portal era, a lot of kids leave Florida to go off to somewhere in the Big Ten or somewhere out west or whatever. You can be the bounce back, come back home, finish your fourth, fifth year, whatever. It's a growing city. There's better. UCF is better positioned now, maybe not this very year, but in terms of a program strength now than they were when Scott Frost got them to 13-0. So, do I expect that kind of level? That's tough to do, but they're in a good spot. Proximity to talent always matters. And very few schools are going to be able to argue that, you draw a 50, 25-mile circle around your campus. You're going to have more talent than UCF is. So I expect a lot out of this program. They're bringing a lot of transfers in this year. We'll see. Really hard to know. I thought it was a surprise when Gus Malzahn. They were just kind of mediocre. They were just average. And I think they have the potential to be a lot better than that.
The last 8 years in the bounce house, 42-9. And I think if I have my schedule correct here in front of me, I believe that Bill Belichick will experience the bounce house on September 20th.
I'm sure they'll be very cordial and kind, welcoming, treat the legend, the GOAT as he is. I'm sure they'll be nice.
Underscoring the difficulty of consistently succeeding and excelling in this league is the two teams that we've talked about the least, and probably that we expect the least from, have really strong quarterback play. Arizona has Noah Fafita returning, and Houston has Texas A&M transfer Connor Wigman, who Willie Fritz is sold on as being an NFL prospect. Feel like that, maybe things got a little sideways for him at Texas A&M, and he can get a reboot there. Fritz has new coordinators as well as he kind of tries to get things going in his second year. But this is a guy that's a proven winner. He won at Tulane, won, at Georgia Southern. He's won everywhere he's been. And, you think he will at Houston. Speaking of proximity to talent, I don't know if it will be this year or not, but, those two programs at least have potential star pieces to build around. In Fafita's case, I guess, based on 2 years ago, he is a proven commodity more so than Wigman in terms of production.
Yeah, a lot of potential at Houston. Willie Fritz, and I've got this from an ESPN story. His first year at Blinn Community, Central Missouri, Sam Houston, Georgia Southern, and Tulane. 30, 25, and 1. That's what he went in year one. Year two, 44 and 17. So there has been a historic jump. Now, a lot of those were a little different era, but maybe it accelerates because you can bring so many guys in. That's a great coach. I mean, there's a junior college, there's an FCS, there's nothing, none of those programs had a lot going for it, and he made a big jump. So he would not surprise me at all if Houston makes a pop. And like I was saying about Central Florida, yeah, ton of talent. You get guys back on the bounce, get guys here. Connor Wegman certainly has got the pedigree to do really well. We'll see. So a lot of potential there at Houston going forward. It's just some of these teams are just hard to predict because you just don't know. And I watched Media Day closely, and everyone's excited about their team. Sometimes coaches are even more excited. So you try to decipher it, but it's hard to know what Houston can be, but none of these teams are going to surprise me a lot if they do well. And as you mentioned, Arizona quarterback's back again, second year, maybe the program settles in. It was a really tough spot trying to fill in, for Brent Brennan. I always get it. I get his name wrong every time. I'm sorry, Brent. But they got to get a defense going, but we'll see what they've got. So two programs with a lot of potential. This whole league, I just think year to year, in to year out, they're going to pop and drop, and you don't know. No one's really just going to be consistently sitting there at the top in this league, and no one's going to consistently sit there at the bottom because it matters too much to everybody.
Arizona's got to find a defense. Houston has to find an offense. They were 132nd in the country in scoring, 14 points per game last year. Not even 300 yards, not even 290 yards a game of offense. That was close to the bottom as well, which means you can be bullish on the stock for both if the Big 12 history is any indication. It's going to be a great league, a balanced league, and a fun one. And it was fun to preview and to make sure that we come full circle on the pod. Catawba, indeed, in Salisbury, North Carolina.
Okay. So I'm sorry. My apologies to that school. Catawba. I thought I knew every school. I swear, after this many years of covering college sports, but that one got by me. So he had a heck of a running back last year, I guess.
Yeah. Well, if you have one at levels outside the FBS, they will come and find you. That is the axiom for this era. Thanks for listening to the College Game Day Podcast. Rece Davis and Dan Wetzel. Pete Thamel still out on paternity leave. He will join us back as the season gets closer and closer. Download wherever you prefer to get your pod, or subscribe and never miss an episode.